A devout man dies and found himself in heaven. He was showed his life. There were 2 sets of footprints, quite a lot, but during a lot of the time there was 1 set of footprints. The 1 set of footprints seemed to happen at the hardest times in the man's life. He was very angry. He turned to God and said, "Why did you leave me during my hardest times?" And God said, "No, the 1 set of footprints is when National Treasure's interviews carried you." And that's now here. Welcome to National Treasures Interview, the interview series of the podcast National Treasures, run by myself, Will Duggan, and you,
Lexx,
where we introduce fascinating people from all over the historical world. How are you today, mate? Are you good?
I'm a bit annoyed. I've got to buy a new car and I don't want to. And I hate doing things like this because I get stressed that someone's trying to con me. And then I end up ringing my dad a lot. And he goes, "I don't know, Gelly, how does the car look?" And then I go, "I don't know, Dad, it looks like a car." But other than that, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. If I can offer you some advice for when you get this car, don't crash it.
Yeah.
And you like
Why didn't you give me that advice with the old car? And then I wouldn't be in this mess.
Don't do a car crash, you'll be fine.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm in my new flat. I've moved.
Ooh, it looks very similar to the old one.
Well, yes, I live mainly in virtual brick backgrounds these days. But look, back there, the sea. So yeah, I'm really good. I'm in a nice mood. My shower's fantastic. I mean, I know it's not historical or important, but the pressure on my shower, oh my God. And I've had so many cups of tea, and now I've left London, there's no like weird film on the tea. It's just good proper tea.
Yes, welcome to Brighton.
Great.
Now, but our guests today are not in Brighton, not even near Brighton. We are talking today to 2 wonderful people in conjunction with English Heritage. And so we've got 2 guests, not even just 1, 2. So doubly exciting, 2 hosts, 2 guests, makes it nice and easy. So I would love to introduce to you.
We're not going to fight them.
Oh, no. I don't want to fight anybody. No. Well, I mean, it could be no, we're not going to fight. Please welcome to your screens, John and Alan. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Hello there.
Hi,
Hello.
thanks so much for joining us.
So guys,
it's nice to be here.
Indeed it is.
Tell people where you are and where you're going to be telling us about. Thank you.
We're in the beautiful county of Durham, land of the Prince Bishops, and we're going to be talking about the Derwentcote Steel Furnace and the wonderful Derwent Valley.
Exciting. We are talking steel furnace.
Yes.
Okay.
A cementation steel furnace, not just any old steel furnace.
Oh no, I already didn't really understand what a steel furnace was really about. What cement? Right, let's start at the beginning anyway. So we're talking about a steel furnace. What, a modern one, an old one? What kind of time scale are we talking here?
Built around the early part of the 18th century, probably 1724, 1730, around about that sort of time.
Lovely. Okay.
Yeah.
And sorry, after you, John.
I was just going to say, that's the first one. That's the one that sort of jumps into your eyesight when you approach our steel furnace, because it's the oldest complete cementation furnace in the country. There's Alan, got a picture of it there for you.
Fantastic.
But there's a equally important one further down the valley that we would like to introduce to you as well.
Great.
Which isn't a cementation furnace. There you go.
So I've done a very small bit of research, and it seems, so when I go wrong, please say. So cementation is when you put the iron into the chimney, and then it's layers of charcoal dust, and then clay, and then it bakes the charcoal into the iron that makes steel. Is that right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You've been doing your homework. You get 10 out of 10 for homework.
My question was, that doesn't sound like something that you would accidentally come across, like the process for doing that. So how was cementation discovered? How old is that process?
It's a process that was first sort of introduced in Roman times. They had rudimentary sort of cementation processes. it's not only it's not only sort of native to this country. I believe again, I'm not an expert in this by any means, but I believe that this is a similar sort of process that the Japanese use when they make their samurai swords.
Wow.
It's steel which is made in a particular way, which is an ancient way. The more modern methods didn't come in until about the 1850s.
Okay.
And that just coincides when the cementation process died out.
Lovely. So this is pre-industrial revolution processes.
It
Started the Industrial Revolution here.
Fantastic.
it was in its heyday around about the start of and it was complementary, and it was one of the reasons that the Industrial Revolution took hold and carried on, because we were able to make steel. The people around it were able to make steel in larger quantities, so it became more readily available.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
So if that furnace is cementation, what's the one that you said was further down? That's not cementation?
It's not cementation. There's actually two, at least further down. One is called a crucible furnace.
Oh, that sounds exciting.
Oh,
there could be snooker in it.
Oh, well.
You're a professional comedian, Laura. No. What is a crucible furnace? What's the process there?
Basically, it's a hole in the ground. It starts off as a hole in the ground. And in that hole in the ground, in the basement of the building, is a furnace. And on the first sort of the ground floor, there are holes cut into that, which are called melt holes. And into these melt holes are inserted. The nearest I could say to them that you might recognize are, these wine amphoras that you get on ancient ships.
Yep.
Yeah.
Something about that size, except they've got a flat bottom and a lid on the top.
Great.
And into those things they put iron ore. Sorry, no, I lied there brilliantly. They put pig iron and other things, mainly charcoal, but I'm sure these iron masters and steel masters had their own little ingredients, because back in the day, they protected these things, these secret remedies that they had very well, and didn't pass them around very freely. And so each little furnace probably had its own recipe for making it. This was heated up to about 1500 degrees centigrade for about 5 hours. And this is where it differed from a cementation furnace, because what it actually produced was molten steel. And this molten steel was then lifted out and poured into casts or molds to form whatever it was they were making. Usually fairly small things, because the amount of steel that you could actually get out of one of these crucibles wasn't all that great. I mean, the things were only a couple of feet tall, perhaps, and 10 inches in diameter. So you ain't going to get much out of one of those.
With the furnace, is there a mine nearby that the furnace is connected to? Like, is that how it works? Like, you find a mine and then you build a furnace next door just to sort of make it super efficient?
There's evidence of, on the site at Derwentcote, there's evidence that there was a corn mill before there was any steel workings in. There was a corn mill driven by the River Derwent, that's obviously close at hand, and in those days there was no steam engine, electric engine. They relied on water power. So there is evidence that there was a corn mill there before there was a forge there. There's a lot of evidence. I have to go back into the records, and the records from way back then are a little bit sketchy. So it's been put together by other archaeologists and teams from various universities. And the time team have actually been down some time ago, digging around and digging trenches and finding all sorts of things and putting the history together.
Just speaking of the history, so did you say 1720s it was built, and then it went out of commissioning like 1891, is it?
1891, that's right.
And then you guys at the Heritage, you refurbished it in 1990. So what was happening to it in that 100 years? Was it just abandoned?
It was falling into ruins.
Yes.
It was falling into disrepair. It was used by local farmers for some time for storing things,
Sure.
and I guess
My
people
fa-
pinch
Sorry.
bits of bricks
Yeah.
and stones and to build walls and houses, and it fell into disrepair. A lot of the buildings, the cottages, and the other furnace, the forge and things, they were actually knocked down to make way for other things, because, as he said, there was a coal mine attached to the place. There's a lot of coal in the area. The Durham, Northumberland and Durham coalfield is part of the area, and there's a lot of coal deposits, and they were, of course, coal was used to heat the furnace, to heat the cementation furnace.
When it was sort of in its heyday, would it have been a family run thing, or was it like a place of work? So how would it have, like, could you talk us through a day in the life of the furnace in its heyday?
Well, there was two cementation furnaces, fairly close to one another. One at a place called Blackhall Mill, which is about a mile upstream from the one at Derwentcote. And the workers' cottages down below the steel furnace, the cementation furnace, housed anything up to about 5 families of people. But workers came in from the nearby villages as well. And a typical sort of day in the life of the cementation process, well, 3 weeks in the life of the cementation process. It was quite a long and involved process, as Alan sort of mentioned. The inside the furnace itself, there are stone chests which sit on top of a furnace fire, and the stone chests are filled with alternate layers of powdered charcoal. And there we go. There's a great diagram of it.
Thank you, Alan.
Powdered charcoal and pig iron bars, which incidentally came in from Sweden.
Can I please ask a question? What is pig iron?
Pig iron is iron which is melted from iron ore.
Okay.
And it has no further treatment to it.
Right, okay.
Okay. And it's different from steel. Well, it starts with a different letter to start with, but there's other differences.
Carbon's the secret.
Carbon is the secret, and this is where the first iron is first introduced to carbon in the cementation process. Now, what happens first of all? It takes a few days to actually load these chests into the furnace. Load the stuff into the chests in the furnace, and then the furnace is lit and tended for 7 or 8 days while this stuff heats up. It doesn't actually melt, it doesn't liquefy. What happens is the layer of charcoal is fused into the outer layers of the iron ingot. Okay? And then once it's reached its temperature, when the iron master decides that it's done, it's allowed to cool down, which in itself takes about 11 days to cool down. And then it's emptied, and then the whole process starts again. Now, I mentioned there was a furnace further up the valley as well, and they were both owned at one time by the same group. What would generally happen, they would run these two furnaces sort of to coincide with one another. So one day they were firing a furnace, another day they were letting it cool down to empty it on a different site. So the workers would probably work between these two sites to keep them fully occupied and to keep the process going.
So the ironmaster that's doing it, is this quite a wealthy person? It's quite a high status.
Ironmaster's a great job title, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't it?
Ironmaster.
But the owners of the furnace, it changed. It seemed to have changed hands. Looking through the records, it seemed to have changed hands a few times. The Cookson family figure quite strongly in that, but it was passed on from one family to the owners. The workers, more or less, it was father and son, and father to son, and the skills were passed on from father to son. But the owners seem to change hands. The ownership of the furnace seemed to change hands quite regularly.
The investors, yeah.
So the workers weren't the ironmaster wasn't necessarily the owner of the furnace.
No, not at all.
So if we come and have a visit, like obviously, let's pretend we're living in a world where COVID has wandered back to wherever it came from and laid down and died, and we come for a visit. What's there now? Like, I've seen pictures of the building. What stone is that? Can we go inside? Like, how does a day trip there work?
Well, we would start off at the top of the site and explain the geography of the whole site and where we're going. And the cementation furnace itself has been upgraded and re-established as near as could be what it was like when it was in operation. And so we can go inside that and explain, and there are cases inside there and an explanation of the whole process. And we have some examples of what the archaeologists have found on the site, some bricks, some bits of glass from the cottages, and some examples for people to handle and look around. But you can go inside the furnace building and see how it used to be, and see the evidence of what went on.
But by far and away, I personally think the most interesting part of the site, there's very little left to see. If you'd have walked down to the site, you're standing at the top of the site now, today, and you're looking down on the cementation furnace that Alan showed you, the picture of that. And it's in a big paddock. And down one side's a row of trees. Down the other side is a hedge and fence leading to the cart track that goes right away down to the riverside. And then below the furnace, there's just a steep bank that drops down to the river and eventually goes sort of across a field to the river. And it's covered in trees these days. You can't see anything for trees and vegetation. But if we were to strip that all away and go back 150 years, this is what you would see. Now, I don't know whether you can see that.
Very rarely do you look at a field and go, oh, I remember when all this was houses.
Hello, it's your weekly interruption of us, by us, for you, from us to you. Thank you.
Within.
We've got a new patron. We're ringing the patron bell.
Ding, 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 ding,
a
ding,
ding, ding, ding. Thank you very much, Judith, for becoming a patron. We're very grateful to have you on board. We love you. Welcome to the squad. We hope you're enjoying the Discord. We hope you're enjoying Years and Years. We hope you're enjoying all the fun things that being a patron of ours comes with.
And we also want to thank Kate Johnson, who was a patron. If you watch his videos, you'll have already heard us thank Kate. But wait, we're thanking her again because she's upped her patronage and has opened up a whole new world of things that she can experience. So as well as Years and Years and the Discord and the little sign picture and the little badge and everything that comes along with it, she now gets access to the live stream.
And a little cup. The little National Treasures Travel Cup.
National Treasures Travel Cup. So, yes, Kate, you will be getting that live stream. We did it one the other day. Very exciting. So if you want to be one of these people who get these nice things, you can be. How do you do that, Laura?
You go to patreon.com/National Treasures, have a look at the different rewards, pick a tier, and join up. We're not asking you to stay forever. Maybe just be a patron for a couple of months, see if you like it.
Or forever.
Or forever. But either way, we love you. Back to the video.
The Northeast seems to have a really intricate relationship with steel. Like we've got this or this, and then wasn't Stephenson's rocket was built in Newcastle, and then the ship, Darlington, that's it. Then all the ships, the shipyards in Newcastle. What is it about the steel industry and the Northeast that makes them so together?
Well,
that's my first question. That was a question.
Oh, well,
yes.
You'll have to work that one out, then, I'm afraid.
No, I'll tell you. I'll answer your first question for you. It's because of the raw material. The raw materials are on site. The steel, the the steel came from Sweden, which is just across the North Sea from Newcastle. The furnace itself and all the other furnaces in the mill, they were on the River Derwent, which wasn't navigable. So the steel would come in from Sweden across the North Sea up the Tyne, and they'd then be transported by horse and cart to the Derwentcote Steelworks. Coal, as I said, there was a coal mine on site, a drift mine on site, so I had ready access to coal to fuel the furnaces and the forges. There was lots of trees around, so if they temporarily ran out of coal, there was always a supplementary fuel source in the woods. There was also a quarry, and so sandstone will be readily available. Because there was trees, there was charcoal, and they could grind that up on site to make the carbon powder. So all the raw materials were in the area, and I guess that's the main reason why it sort of developed along the River Derwent. And Newcastle in general, not just the River Derwent. It was called, at one point, it was called Newcastle Steel.
For what it's worth, we wouldn't have got that right, so don't worry about losing the question.
I thought you had probably known that.
Sort of moving away slightly from the steel process, but the actual building that's left, is there mortar on the building, or is it just the sort of intricate stone wall?
No, there's mortar. There's lots of mortar, and that's held together with mortar. That's one of the things that we often see, plants growing up the side of it, and that's a bit of a worry that the plant's roots get into the mortar.
Yeah.
And but we had a big cleanup not so long ago.
Great.
So I was just thinking, if you're like having a furnace on for 3 weeks to those intense you know, it's quite wear and tear on a building, isn't it? Especially in the northeast, having that heat from inside with the general weather coming at it from outside. That's a lot of
when you go inside the building, as I said, there's access to the building. You can go inside this. The guides, the super guide John, can demonstrate the actions of the heat, because there's huge cracks down the inside of the flue, and it would get up to 1100 degrees C when it was right, and the fusion of the carbon into the iron would take place, but the whole cone would expand about 5 inches.
Wow.
Whoa!
That's so
and there's cracks to demonstrate that. There's huge cracks in the cone itself, which
5 inches is a lot of movement, isn't it?
yeah, and it would be very hot. And if you can imagine being in there, the roar of the fire, to create that temperature and to maintain that for a week, 10 days, and the roar of that furnace and the heat. So it wasn't a pleasant place to work, I wouldn't have thought.
No, I'd imagine everybody had curly eyebrows from singeing the...
Yeah. And then I think just finally, again, it's on your website, so you'll know more about it. The Land of Fire and Oak.
Oak and iron, you mean?
Oak and iron.
Yeah.
I'm talking.
You were trying to test us there, weren't you?
Yeah. So the Land of Oak and Iron.
That's right.
Fire and ice. Is that what you mean, Will?
If you want to call it Oak and Iron, that's fine. Can you just tell us a little bit about that? Because it looks great.
Well, the actual heritage centre for the Land of Oak and Iron is down where Crowley's works used to be, in a place called Willnayton Mill. I was part of the Oak and Iron. What it's to do is to promote the heritage of the Derwent Valley, from the mouth of the Derwent up into the hills. It's not long. The river's only about 15, 16 mile long. It's about it, Alan, isn't it?
That's about it. Yeah, it goes up to the Derwent Reservoir now.
Yeah, beyond the reservoir, a place called Blanchland. And funnily enough, there was the first iron foundry was recorded in 1299 up that part of the valley. And I was taking my kids paddling in the river about 40 years ago, and found a big lump of what I thought was an asteroid because it was so smooth and heavy. But it has actual fact a piece of bloom from one of the old furnaces up in the valley that had found its way into the river. And I still got it in my garden. But the Land of Oak and Iron is to promote all the different aspects. My wife, who's just gone out, she's a member of the woodland team, Land of Oak, and they go and they put new woodland paths in. In fact, they're coming down to our furnace to put some paths in to give better access to parts of it that's under the undergrowth at the moment. But I was part of a thing called the mapping project, was to identify all the mills and furnaces up and down the Derwent Valley before COVID started. So it's got lots of different aspects to it, each one looking at a different part of the history of the Derwent Valley, based around the Land of Oak for charcoal and iron for iron.
There's a £3.5 million project. It's a huge, long project, which will include the Derwent, and as John says, further up the river, to preserve the heritage of the area, because it's understood now that there's very few of the cementation furnaces left. It's an important historical building, and so the whole area is going to have a lot of money spent on preserving that history.
Shall we do a quiz? I think we've grilled you long enough. It's time for us to really let ourselves down.
Okay.
Just a little warning, John and Alan. We get too competitive about this and start bickering with each other almost immediately. So apologies in advance.
What caused the decline in steel production in the northeast in favour of production in Sheffield?
So it's about the late 19th century.
Is it introduction of the railway for easier transport?
You're on the right track.
Is it industrialisation?
Great pun. I loved it.
Yes.
Is it industrialisation brackets general?
Margaret Thatcher. We can blame her for everything. Was it Margaret Thatcher?
No, not quite.
Damn. Okay.
I mean, I'm all for having a go at Margaret Thatcher at every opportunity, but it was about 80 years too early.
Yeah, I can feel
got her
it.
off that one.
Can feel it in my bones. It was something to do with her. I don't know much about Sheffield. Like I like my guesses would be something like either they found a richer seam of something, like you say, natural ingredients, or like canals or something.
The canal.
You've got it.
Yes.
Yes, you've got it.
Let's see now. All right, then. It's quite a simple, straightforward one for you. What's the difference between iron and steel?
Yes. Iron is a naturally occurring thing, and steel is iron that's been treated with carbon.
Right, but why would you want to treat iron with carbon?
Stronger.
Does it make it less brittle?
Why not just use iron and make all your things with iron?
It's too weak.
Ooh, you wouldn't say that to a prisoner who was trying to break out of a cell.
I'd rather face a prisoner with an iron bar than a steel bar, but ideally neither.
Can you get steel to a sharper edge, maybe? Like
you can, Laura. You're dead right. You've got the brittleness of iron is it tends to crack very easily, whereas steel is more plastic. It's more malleable. It can be sharpened. In fact, this is where you could turn around and say that the steel produced by the cementation furnace was useless.
Let's call that a point each. I said stronger, and I also did the process because I've been listening. You can have it for less brittle, but I want something. 1 point each. I do the edit.
Okay, fine. Still 2-1 to me, though, technically.
What sort of products do you think that Derwentcote would produce?
Shears.
Oh, you've been listening.
Yes!
But more than that.
Rings to attach the masts on ships. I've been listening too, John.
You've been listening too,
Sickles.
yes.
I liked that word. It made me think of Getafix
Scythes.
from Asterix and Obelix.
Agricultural tools.
Nails.
Nails.
Something that we haven't
Scythes.
mentioned yet, but was the gentry appreciated.
Guns. Rifles. Shotguns.
No,
Money.
no. Well, lots of that.
Stirrups for horses. No, okay.
No, it's for the gentry's comfort, shall we say?
What do posh people like?
Oysters.
Yeah, there was a bit of a byproduct actually. Yeah.
What do the gentry like? Tweed.
I'll give you a clue. It begins with sp and ends in rings.
Springs.
Hey, excellent. Well done. the leaf springs for carriages.
Oh right. I just thought the
was suitable for that.
I just thought the Georgian nobleman just really liked springs. Like, look at this.
Slinkies were
Carriage
very in
springs.
fashion.
Carriage
Oh,
springs.
interesting. So like suspension kind of.
Yeah, that sort of thing was useful for as a steel. Iron, you couldn't do that because too brittle, it would just snap. But with steel, they could introduce sort of suspension to their coaches and wagons.
Yeah.
Which they would love, yeah. You can have that.
One more.
Laura.
We both said it at the same time. We'll call it a point each.
3-2.
3-2. Let's see if you can claw it back now.
The process at Derwentcote used iron from Sweden, as I said before. Now, why would we go all the way to Sweden and use Swedish iron when there's iron ore deposits in this country?
Was it something to do with Brexit?
No.
No.
You're cold.
Was it?
Was it because the Swedish iron came with very easy to read instructions and a lot of Allen keys?
Flat pack iron.
We just found that a lot easier.
You're not even getting warm yet. No.
Okay.
Is it something to do with William of Orange?
I see where you're going with that one, but no.
Okay.
Okay, Swedish iron. I don't know much.
Was there just
about-
more of it? Was it cheaper?
No, well, I mean, you had to transport it from Sweden.
Mm.
And so the transport costs were significant, but we couldn't use the iron ore deposits in this country. There's actually iron ore deposits in the Derwent Valley, but they're high in phosphorus and sulfur, and they were impurities that weren't you couldn't have in steel.
Thank you so much.
Go on.
I've just got one more question for you,
Okay.
Will.
Go on.
Well, it's a two-part question, really. Do you still hate geese, and have you improved your first aid skills?
You've seen my Edinburgh show. Did you see me at a Hilarity Bites gig?
No, I saw you on YouTube.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yes, I still hate geese, though, and my first aid skills are pretty similar. Well, thanks for watching my video. There you go. Fame. It has happened to me. Before we let you go, guys, can you just, give us a 30-second who should go there, who's it for, and why should people put Derwentcote Forge... Not Forge, sorry. Put it on there.
It is a forge. It is a forge. It's a forge and a furnace.
The
I think anyone that's interested at all in industrial history, we English Heritage are advertising on their website guided tours that are run by Alan and myself, and it'd be best if you could book onto one of those things, because we'll take you around the whole lot and go down to the bottom where the forges and that were, and point out all of the things that were in that picture I tried to show you. And Other than that, if you go down on your own, there's just the cementation furnace, which you can't go into, unfortunately, unless there's someone there. And if you go down to the bottom, you could easily walk through the whole site and miss everything because of the vegetation.
We'll put the link up for those tours so people can follow that too.
Well, that would be good if you would appreciate that if you could.
Of course. Gents, thank you so much for joining us. Do you have any websites or social medias or anything that you want to promote that we'll put in the video and then in the credits at the end? People can find you at
Derwentcote Steel Furnace.
Yes,
and
indeed.
the land of oak and iron.
and Fire and Oak. Great. John and Alan from English Heritage and Derwentcote Steel Furnace, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you for watching, viewers. Oh, what a wonderful chat. My head is just like fizzing now a bit with information, but thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this interview, please check out all the other ones that we have. You know, we've been all over the place talking to people and finding out about different interesting spots, just like the Derwentcote Furnace. You can follow us at Treasures Pod on Twitter and Instagram.
Correct.
We are youtube.com/National Treasures.
I don't need to know that. They're watching this on YouTube.
Okay. You can email us.
How?
If you like.
National Treasures Podcast at
gmail.com. And we are Patreon. If you like what we do enough that you'd like to support us and get access to the extras from these videos, have these videos as an audio-only download for you to listen to in your car, wherever you choose, and get 4 extra podcasts a month with our Years and Years special, then you can join us at patreon.com/National Treasures.
Brilliant work. Well done, Laura. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.